So as we saw from this past edition of Raw, which was in Birmingham, England, WWE decided to change a lot of their plans going into one of their big four pay-per-views of the year, and that is pretty much what this video is going to be very centered around. We saw some changes to the WWE Championship picture. We saw some changes to the traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series match, which was initially going to main event Survivor Series, and then WWE decided to try and change everything 2 weeks before the pay-per-view, mind you, to something completely different. And I guess the question really I want to ask in this video is not just why, but why did WWE go about it this way? That is my issue with this topic at hand, really. Why did WWE go around and do it the way they did?
Because I look at this video and look at this idea that WWE have, the fact that we're looking at Survivor Series as one of the pay-per-views that the WWE want to be a big payoff, the big thing that people tune in to see for different many reasons. And yes, last week's show, I did question why they did it the way they did. They've given us these two big matches, which we're getting now, and now they're giving us a week late. So the question is it a good thing and is it a bad thing? What is the future of the pay-per-view going to be like?
Let's look at this thing initially, though. You spent a whole load of time on the TV show last week hyping up to this match, Team Foley versus Team Punk, and whether or not you agreed with it, at least they announced it in advance and gave it 3 weeks to be built. And then you go to the next week, and all of a sudden, they're changing the plans, and it gets to a point where it's like, my God, how ridiculous is this? I mean, the announcement itself, it almost felt like Vince McMahon actually walked to the back, thought of the idea, brought Vicky Guerrero out, who had no idea what was going on, and decided to make the announcement on behalf of the whole of WWE without anyone knowing. That's how it honestly came across to me in that segment. Not to mention the fact that it was in the middle of a Brad Maddox segment.
The sad thing about this is that with the writing they did last week, yes, they may have done it in advance, but if you look at it, they only gave us one big match with all the wrestlers who could possibly give us other matches through the pay-per-view. So straight away, and plus Foley came out of nowhere. So to be honest, the way they set up last week, it may have been in advance, but it didn't really work. So I kind of wish they did this, which they haven't done. That's why they've messed up 2 weeks in a row now. This week's show that we've just been watching, we've just reviewed, that this was a perfect week, which could have happened last week, and there would have been less complaints and proper build for the pay-per-view.
And I think this is a very, very good example of WWE's lack of long-term planning and the way they switched it around in the last minute. You can't help but think that something was really going wrong in the head of Vince McMahon last week. I mean, I don't mind the matches. The matches we got, I think, are better. You've got a big main event and a traditional Survivor Series match there. But at the same time, why couldn't they have just done that from day one? The whole issue here is they announced something totally different on week 1, and then they're changing it all around in week 2. Not to mention the fact that Survivor Series is one of WWE's big 4 pay-per-views, and it's getting 3 weeks of build, and Hell in a Cell got double that time. What the fucking sense does that make?
And this goes to what we were saying previous weeks, about 3 weeks ago or so. The fact when we realised that Survivor Series don't even get the short amount of build for the pay-per-view when you've got to focus on making this team look good, nicely built, and a reason to take place, compared to Hell in a Cell, which I didn't really think needed as long as it got. So I think next year they should definitely sort the schedule out for the pay-per-views, because this Survivor Series, I'm going to say this straight away, I don't think it's going to be one of the best Survivor Series we've had in the previous years.
How can you look forward to something when you get given something 1 week and then you get something different the other, and it only gets 3 weeks of build? Survivor Series feels to me like a filler pay-per-view, and Hell in a Cell with the 6 weeks build is the one that felt like a big 4 pay-per-view in that sense. Not that it was very good or anything. Survivor Series to me now just feels like a filler freaking pay-per-view, especially with the lack of planning WWE have put into this, which is very obvious by what they did on Raw.
As much as I want to agree with you that it does feel like a filler pay-per-view, the only part that does not feel like a filler pay-per-view, which I think they should have announced last week, is the triple threat we're getting. Because that is the match that I predicted was going to happen at Survivor Series main event. I'm glad we get it now, so that part, it feels that part is the correct part, the part that is probably going to steal the show more than the actual Survivor Series match, which the pay-per-view is actually about.
I agree. I agree that this Ryback Cena Punk match was the totally logical match, and it does make sense if they booked it the day after Hell in a Cell. Now they've done it this way, they've kind of complicated matters a little bit, and then you go on to this Team Ziggler versus Team Foley match. You know, you got Miz go out, Wade Barrett come in, then you had Punk obviously is in the title match, then Ziggler comes in. Like, why is he the team captain? What reason does he have to be a team captain other than the fact that he's the Money in the Bank winner? And is he really good enough to be a team captain? I would have rather have had Wade Barrett as a team captain. At least I can believe this guy could be a fucking leader.
There's 2 points about this. Number one, with the whole Ziggler stepping in, Ziggler and Foley did have something teased.
Yeah, 10 months ago.
But they did kill that off, which I think they killed off the Punk Foley thing, they killed off the Ziggler thing. So even though the whole Mick Foley involvement, that's a whole different story, why I might agree with it, why I don't agree with it. The leader, yes, when Barrett had that backstage segment with Heyman, he could have quite possibly said, under one condition, I become the leader. And that would have had Barrett becoming more of a stronger force in the WWE, which he should have done when he returned, and you would have had the strong side with Foley. So it would have made more sense.
Not to mention the fact they've had to now switch around storylines. One minute you have John Cena in an affair with AJ, that storyline, as much as I don't like it, at least, like, and then you took John Cena out of that storyline, put him into the WWE Championship picture, leaving Ziggler to be captain of this team, and it's just messing everything up. The two big storylines now were the Team Foley versus Team Punk, and it was Ziggler versus Cena was going to be at the pay-per-view, which I guess the card looks better, but the way they've gone around it, putting Cena from this storyline into the WWE Championship picture, as much as Cena and Ryback getting a triple threat match and both getting shots makes sense, the way they've done it is freaking terrible.
On Cena's behalf of this, though, I'm going to say that I'm glad that Cena has been moved to this direction, basically because, as he said on, I think, the Go show to Hell in a Cell, the winner of Hell in a Cell I'm going to face. Yes, we did not get a winner, but because of the no DQ, because of Punk retaining, it ultimately equaled a triple threat at Survivor Series. So no matter what Cena's had to go through to get here, this should have been done, like we said many times, last week, and it would have flowed better going to Survivor Series.
And I guess my question here is, do you think this was a reaction to the somewhat underwhelming response from last week's announcement, and the not real big main event feel that 5-on-5 match had? Do you feel that after that announcement, why WWE made that announcement in the first place? I mean, you had a good point. You're putting all your feuds in one match. You really didn't have an undercard, and it really wasn't a big main event style match with massive star power in it. You get to this point, and, it's like, did they do it because it was an underwhelming response? I feel the reason they changed it was because the fact that it got a very underwhelming response from the crowd, it didn't really get people buzzing. And Vince McMahon turned around and said to himself, well, this isn't going to get pay-per-view buys. We're going to have to change things around in 2 freaking weeks away from the pay-per-view.
Very true. I think the announcement, the way they did it was good. You had Foley returning out of nowhere. You had CM Punk and Foley in the ring together again. Nice setup. But the thing that I think did it was when they made it, it all came out, they thought, right, let's plan the rest of Survivor Series.
They didn't really have much, did they?
Yeah, I think it was more not the announcement. I think they had the idea of the main event.
And then the rest of it was
not there. So I think it was because of what they realised after Raw.
They realised they did need a bigger main event match, and they did need to put Punk in a title match with a year of his title reign coming up, essentially. Now, like I said, I just think this is a reaction to the lack of buzz this 5-on-5 match got, which really does lead me to the question, why did they not go down the logical route, which was going to be Ryback, Cena, and Punk, rather than what they did, which kind of came out of nowhere, which was it was a good idea, I'll give them that, but it meant they didn't really have an undercard. Why didn't they just go with this plan straight away, especially when you only have 3 weeks of build going to the pay-per-view, which is clearly not enough for a Big 4 pay-per-view?
I just think the WWE thought what they did last week was going to give them the biggest main event for Survivor Series, but then what they realised, the rest of the card was empty. They had to rush and mess up the whole plan. So I think it's just they rewrote last week pretty badly.
And how much has this affected your view going into Survivor Series? I mean, I think the matches are a lot better now. I think the card is a lot better. But how much has this change and chopping around really affected your feeling going into Survivor Series now?
Well, first, the 3-week thing hit it quite badly. So, like, Survivor Series is meant to be an important pay-per-view to WWE. So that was the first knock. The second knock was they didn't really start giving us teasers of what's going to happen, especially following last week. They didn't really give us teasers of what other matches were getting Survivor Series. If this week happened last week, I would have been more looking forward to it.
Same here. I totally agree with you. And that is the point of this video, really. Why did WWE not put the planning into this and do what they did this week, last week, so they could build up to these three potential matches they have on the card, with including Sheamus and Big Show, properly, rather than changing everything around and wasting TV time doing it that week, then wasting TV time changing it around this week. Now, not just that, but also, we're left with one less guy on Team Foley now. Now, the question really is, who's going to be the fifth guy for Mick Foley? That's a big question, I think, that me and you can discuss, and the YWC can also discuss, as well as the big topic of this video.
As I said in the Raw review, I think the fifth member is going to be someone that's absolutely awesome!
So it's going to be The Miz then. I mean, your Miz face turn idea, I must admit, did put a smile on my face, considering the fact that I was massively pissed off in Post-Bound for Glory show mode. So I think that was definitely a good idea. I personally, they don't really have anyone else to fill that spot. I mean, I'm really surprised they didn't announce it on Raw, because we really need to know who that fifth guy is. I mean, if it's done for suspense and they're going to bring back a guy like The Rock or a big name, but any name right now is going to be very underwhelming, even a Miz or a Foley if they're going to be put in that spot. So I guess my question is, once again, we want to know what we're paying for. We want to know who this fifth freaking guy is, and the way they've changed it around, we don't know, and it seems like WWE right now probably don't freaking know.
Well, I look at this and really think that the fifth member, the fact that they're leaving it for the Go-Home Show week to reveal, it's got to be someone that's actually worth it. And that's what I'm thinking. Maybe they'll not announce it next week and actually have the pay-per-view, and The Miz is actually the one. Because I really think The Miz would be a great person. Yes, he's better off as a heel, but to surprise us, become a face and become one of the face main eventers, I think that would work out perfectly. Other people, there's no other three wrestlers who deserve to be in this match.
No, there really isn't, which is why I thought your Miz idea was very good. So really, like we said, guys, put your thoughts on this topic down in the comment section below. What do you think of the way WWE changed their matches? Are you for or against the way they have the card now? Who do you think will be the fifth guy, and why do you think WWE went around doing it this way and decided to do a massive turn on the original plans? Why do you think that? Let us know down in the comment section below. I have been Mr. Parkin, talking about this very controversial topic, I guess you could say, from what happened on Raw, because it pretty much dominated Raw and really led me to be very pissed off in the review, as you guys saw. I'm sorry if you had to see that. I don't like watching it either. Do you want to give us an outro, NJ?
And now, people, thank you very much for this. Enjoy the rest of this week and the Go-Home Show week, which we don't know what the hell is going to come. Survivor Series is coming on upon us. So until next time, YouTubers, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.